Good morning, it's Tuesday the 3rd of September and you're listening to the Business Insights podcast from Business News Wales. Is there still time for Pembrokeshire to get a bigger slice of the Swansea Bay City Deal? Could the region become the green capital of Europe? And how important is digital infrastructure to the future of Pembrokeshire economy? To discuss this and more, I spoke with Iwan Thomas. Iwan is Chief Executive at Planed. Hi, Iwan.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thank you. So Planed, for those listeners who are not familiar with the organisation, please explain what is it that you guys do?
Planed is an organisation based here in Pembrokeshire. We're now in our 31st year. And it's an organisation which really kind of is committed to supporting communities. It's working with them to improve their quality of life, focusing on opportunities, looking at the potential they have in terms of drawing down funding, and working across a range of different themes, ranging from tourism to culture to environmental to digital, and a whole host of other activities to really support communities, small businesses, and making sure that we're all working together to improve and enhance the economy, environment and infrastructure of Pembrokeshire as a whole.
And from what I can see, you're expanding very quickly across Pembrokeshire?
Yes, we're certainly kind of expanding across the region in West Wales because obviously the indigenous population, as it were, of Pembrokeshire works outside of the county as well as within the county as well. So what we want to do is to kind of work with those peripheral communities across the rest of West Wales to make sure that we can really kind of link up and not duplicate in terms of the support, advice, guidance that we can provide for communities across all of the region.
Generally, the Welsh economy seems to be performing fairly well. Do you think that's the same in Pembrokeshire?
It's one of those areas where there are pockets of good news, but there are inherent problems within the county where we're looking at areas of deprivation, we're looking at areas around poverty, and sometimes that poverty isn't always visible. There may be businesses or communities which continue to function and operate on a day-to-day basis. But what's going on behind the scenes are certainly challenges which we at Planed, but working alongside our partners across the county and the region, are really keen to find out the causes, the root problems, and look at how we address those collectively in a more sustainable way. So it's not just really about having, as we've had done over numerous years before, European funding or other funding pots coming in, and there's a great project which someone has an idea for. It lasts 3 years, the project funding comes to an end, and so does the support, and then that business and that community is left back at square one. And I think that's what Pembrokeshire has suffered from, and certainly I think Planed has as well, where we've had individuals with bright ideas, but they're not necessarily the right individuals to see the projects through, because they are just project individuals per se. What we want are people who, within the county and within Planed certainly, are there for the longer term and have more sustainable solutions to offer to make sure that our small businesses, particularly within the county, but also our communities, have a more sustainable and more rounded support that hasn't perhaps been provided by us or by others before.
What opportunities do you think exist for the Pembrokeshire economy?
I think at the moment, obviously, as you mentioned, with Brexit, there's a great deal of uncertainty. And I think what often gets overlooked when people are talking Brexit generally is the fact that Pembrokeshire, we have 2 ports here, which are going to be the main access point between mainland UK and Europe, essentially across the water into Ireland. So I think, that often gets overlooked. People talk about Dover, Felixstowe, Southampton, Portsmouth, whatever. And I think, what we need to focus on is in terms of the economy here in Pembrokeshire around those particular ports that we have, and in terms of how we're going to maximise the benefits, should there be any, which we hope, from what can happen next. But I think looking at the wider economy, the foundation economy is really important to Pembrokeshire. So by the foundation economy, obviously many people will be aware that's the service industries, that's the public sector, that's those kind of less glamorous industries. It's not aerospace, it's not kind of, high-tech engineering. It's the things which keep our county going on a day-to-day basis to make sure that our environment, our infrastructure, our basic services are all working as they should be. But I think one of the real opportunities for Pembrokeshire is around, as it has been in the last couple of years, around alternative energy sources. And we're seeing a lot more work, which certainly Planet is keen to be part of, and certainly is, around community energy, where communities are coming together to look at community turbines, looking at alternate uses in terms of energy to really kind of protect but also enhance their environment, which they then control as a community, which then promotes the greener energy solutions, which I think we're all very much signed up to. But we have seen within some pockets of Pembrokeshire a real innovation, which certainly the team here in Planet, working with our wider partners across the county, are keen to harness and promote.
Is that that social enterprise, that community ownership model, is that something that you guys are now starting to champion a bit more?
Yes, we certainly are. It's been kind of quite key to what Planet's been about in the last kind of couple of years, particularly, but we're now seeing a real increase in terms of community shares, community land trusts, again, is another area of huge activity for us, where one of our team is working now with 4 communities across Pembrokeshire who are about to sign up to become community land trusts in their own right, which essentially will kind of help those communities have a real control and input into any new housing developments, which will protect and enhance those communities, but also give them a annual income from the ground rents that they will receive, which they can then put back into communities. But certainly the community shares and community benefit societies that we're seeing now increasingly within Pembrokeshire. Tavern Sink in the north of the county is a great example of where Planet worked with the community and partners to save a key community asset by raising over £100,000, if not more, to purchase that community asset for the community to be run by the community. And I think that's really key in terms of how, community doesn't necessarily mean charity. It can also look at, key business models. It can look at how it can be a sustainable economic outcome for that community, but also enhance and support the wider supply chains within and around that community as well. So I think the economic side of community is something that we're really kind of keen to do more of with Planet, but also in association and in partnership with our wider partners across the region.
Absolutely. Do you foresee the time when perhaps a local area in Pembrokeshire might, I suppose, 100% own that renewable energy source, and then all that energy then will go into the grid, so that we're basically creating free energy for the local population, and then putting it into the grid and making a profit, but all that profit remaining in the community?
That is something which, certainly is on the table. I think when we're looking now with the green agenda, particularly, across Wales, as it were, certainly I think Welsh Government are open to looking at all different types of solutions. And what we want to do in Pembrokeshire, particularly with Planet, is to look at how we come up with sustainable solutions. So if that was something which could be developed and can become sustainable to help those communities, as you say, generate an income from, linking up to the grid, but also in terms of making them self-sufficient in some respects for their own energy purposes, I think that is something which I think potentially could and very easily happen within the foreseeable future.
You hear a lot of people talking about, that Pembrokeshire could potentially become the green capital of Europe, with all that's going on in wave energy, and obviously we've got
absolutely
the wind.
We've got it all in Pembrokeshire. I mean, there are many other counties, I'm sure, in Wales who will also claim, to be able to do that. I mean, I certainly know when you look at places like Anglesey, they did kind of brand themselves as Energy Island for a number of years. But, sadly, there are changes to projects there around Wilfynewydd, which have kind of had, a knock-on effect. But I think for Pembrokeshire particularly, I think, if partners all work together from the public and private sector with the support of government, we could see a whole new suite of businesses really kind of come to the fore in terms of really making us the energy hub for Wales, but also for the UK and beyond in terms of innovation, in terms of best practice, and in terms of a sustainable kind of wider development for the sector.
I was going to say sustainability obviously is key to what you guys are doing. Pembrokeshire seems to be a really good fit for a whole host of sustainability models, from food, agriculture, through to energy. Do you think it is more than just energy that we can excel at in terms of sustainability?
I totally agree. I think energy, I think, is one of those things where if we get it right, it has what I always call a ripple effect into other sectors and the supply chain. I mean, if you look at food, Pembrokeshire, has a fantastic growing food sector. We have a huge number of micro businesses within the food sector alongside larger established companies. And obviously you've got the food park being developed now at Haverfordwest, very much being championed by the private sector as well as Pembrokeshire County Council, which is great. And I think, obviously alongside energy, we've got food, the tourism and heritage sector is a huge area of our economy in terms of what it generates. And I think, certainly what we're seeing in Pembrokeshire is a move away from seasonality into a year-round offer where we can actually make sure that we have something for everyone, whatever time of the year it is. So we still attract your families coming down to our fantastic coastline and what we have inland in terms of our, kind of key big attractions during the summer months, but also that we very much kind of look at other areas of what Wales have been doing in terms of North Wales, where they have, key attractions which can offer all year round facilities and bring people from far and wide. And I think that's what Pembrokeshire is very much looking to do. And I think, we're all working as partners to achieve that collectively as well.
In terms of the whole inward investment opportunity for Pembrokeshire, do you think we can start attracting businesses perhaps from the Welsh capital, from over the border in England, to come and relocate into Pembrokeshire?
If you have that digital infrastructure in place, and today UK government's been talking about rolling out further in terms of 5G to make it more accessible, particularly in rural areas being a priority as well, which is great for somewhere like Pembrokeshire as well as other counties in West Wales. But I think we're already seeing a migration down the M4 further west. Obviously, you've got Eregin at Carmarthen now, where S4C have their headquarters moving down from Cardiff. And I think, Pembrokeshire, if the digital infrastructure is there is no reason why we can't have more and more people being attracted down here to have that quality of life, where it's the quality of, business support that we can offer in terms of location, but also the quality of life that we can offer in terms of the lifestyle with, fantastic education, places to live, communities, and all of that collectively being put into the pot. But I think, connected with that, we also need to be very focused on the support that we provide for skills, because if we don't continue to upskill our current workforce, but at the same time very much looking at supporting the skills of our future workforce, that will then start to be a disconnect. But I think we are lucky that, with Pembrokeshire College particularly, the college is very much continuing to look forward in terms of how they can be integral to the future workforce of our county, but also in terms of our region. And certainly, Planet is keen to be supporting all partners involved on the skills agenda to make sure that our current employers and businesses, are able to continue to upskill to remain competitive on a local, regional, national, international scale, but also that we're able to attract new talent coming in with the right skills, that we can retain our place within the economy as well.
We talked about the opportunities that exist in Pembrokeshire, around renewables, the sustainability model, social enterprise. We've got lots of brownfield sites. I'm guessing this, some major freight opportunities with what might happen with the ports. What difference could Welsh Government make? What's needed to stop us from sort of bumbling along, if you like, but to really make a big impact and to really exploit some of those bigger opportunities?
I would say it's a greater deal of flexibility. I think the will is there within Welsh Government, and certainly from our perspective, talking to politicians, the right kind of noises are being made. The intent is there. I think what we need to do is, to work with Welsh Government and say, look, we need a greater degree of flexibility in terms of how we can support business here in a county such as Pembrokeshire. Pembrokeshire, which is now at the forefront in terms of being, the next step from us is Europe. Again, looking at, going across the Irish Sea. So I think it's having a kind of a refocus, as it were, pushing the reset button in terms of the Welsh economy. And I think Welsh Government needs to kind of perhaps move away from a focus essentially on the valleys communities who have benefited, I think, considerably over the last kind of 10 to 20 years through devolution with Welsh Government. And I think what we now need to do is actually let's channel the funds down the M4 corridor. Let's come to Pembrokeshire, Carmarthenshire, Ceredigion, and actually let's invest in our business models here, because we've got some of the best people with fantastic skills who are looking to retain their place in the county. We've got the sites which, our local authorities are, chomping at the bit to get people into, to invest, set up their businesses there. But it's having that support from national government to actually make it happen. And I think that's what, certainly from a planning perspective and my own perspective, is what I would like to see is let's get rid, of some of the red tape. Let's work more efficiently. Let's follow the private sector model. And if we can get things done today, let's do it today. I don't need to have meetings for the next kind of, umpteen weeks to talk about it. And certainly, looking at Planet before, there was certainly that kind of mindset where if there was a great idea, it would be done, but it would take, a time and an age to deliver, because there'd be various meetings to actually talk about it, plan it, etc., etc. Sometimes when you're working with people need an answer straight away, and I think that's where Planet, perhaps didn't kind of be as reactive as it should have been in the past. But again, we're lucky those people now don't work here anymore, and we've got a fantastic team here who actually are thinking, how they could be more responsive, how they could be more focused on people, more focused on communities. And we're certainly working with our partners across the county to actually deliver that. So again, we've got a collective approach in Pembrokeshire, which is all about, how we can help our county, our region, maximise the opportunities. And I think if Welsh Government were able to kind of match that enthusiasm in terms of supporting us here in Pembrokeshire and work with us to achieve that, as I know they are already, but I think what I would like to see is just less restriction and less red tape. If there's something on the table and we all agree, let's just get on and do it. And I think that's the key for us in Pembrokeshire going forward.
Fantastic. Last question, Yuan. The Swansea Bay City Deal. Do you think Pembrokeshire has perhaps missed the boat on that one a little bit, or is there still time for us to, really take advantage of that deal?
I always look at everything as glass half full, and I think there is still time for Pembrokeshire to really, get the most out of that city deal. I think, in terms of geography, obviously we're at the far end of the Swansea Bay City region, as it were. And obviously in terms of population, there's a greater cluster in terms of population as you go further east towards Swansea and East Talbot. But I think, Pembrokeshire has a lot to offer, which can benefit the whole region. Things we've just, kind of covered in terms of what we can do with energy, in terms of tourism, in terms of food, in terms of, a whole host of other sectors. And I think for us, in terms of the Swansea Bay City Deal, we've certainly been integral to the discussion so far, and certainly our representatives around the table at the City Deal have certainly made Pembrokeshire's voice heard, which is great. But I think what the city deal now needs to do is to kind of, reflect and acknowledge that Swansea Bay isn't just about Swansea. It is very much about the whole of the region. And I think Pembrokeshire has a lot to offer the Swansea Bay City Deal, and it's never too late in terms of making sure that we as a county are very much at the forefront of some of the projects which could be delivered and continue to evolve in terms of how it benefits the whole region in a more sustainable fashion for many years to come.
Iwan Thomas, Planed, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Iwan.
Thank you, Mark.